Hello, welcome to part 2 of our series, The English Alphabet. In part 1, we saw how the alphabet itself evolved all the way to the Latin alphabet and how the Latin scribe was able to use the alphabet in such a way that he could write the sounds of words that could be easily understood and reproduced by others. Now let's take a look at how English adapted the Latin alphabet to be used in their own language. Let's talk about Old English. Old English was spoken in England from the 5th to the 12th centuries. It was related to German. Its spelling was regular and mostly followed the rules of the Latin alphabet. It used the same letters and sounds of the Latin alphabet, but added a few characters. You can see there the thorn, et, and W. Now, here we can see a document written in Old English, and we see some of these characters. We also see this character here, combination of A and E, and this was used in Latin, late Latin. They started to use also this combination, represent a sound between the A and the E. Now this document would be very hard to read today because Old English was very different to today's English. Since Old English was related to German, let's take a quick look at the evolution of German spelling. The German language uses a few more sounds than those represented initially by the Latin alphabet. It uses different but consistent methods to represent the new sounds. Let's take a look here at this word. In this case, for example, it's using a digraph, combination of two vowels, to represent a sound that's between an O and an E, that is pronounced schön. Now here we can see that it is the same word, but instead of using a digraph, he's using a diacritic mark to represent the same sound. So it's still schön, but is now represented using a diacritic mark. And this phrase here, we can see a different symbol that is being used. This here sounds like S. So basically here it says Ich weiß nicht. Now the E and the I always sound like I. So these are the rules you have to learn. You have to learn that O and E represent the sound, E and I represent different sounds, etc. So there are a few rules, but they are consistent. And today, German is a regular language, which basically means that the rules are enough to represent each word or the word of each sound. So it's defined in such a ways that it is consistent on how it represents the sounds for each word. Well, let's talk now about Middle English. It developed after the Norman invasion of England. So the Normans were Vikings who lived in northern France and invaded England. The Norman invasion disrupted the English culture and language at the time. They imposed French as the official language of the court. So because of this, English was transmitted mostly orally, and very few used it in its written form. We can see here William, the Viking or the Norman king, and his two brothers. Now let's see how the French language influenced the English language. First, the Normans removed the New English letters from its spelling. Now, in spite of the fact it is considered a Latin or Romance language, French uses a greater number of vocalic sounds that are not represented by individual symbols. Listen to some examples of this. See, for example, this word laisser, where the A and the I represent a sound that's more like so this word here is laisser. Here, the I changes. It's not I or E, but is so this word is matin. Here, the O and the I represent the sound wa. So this is poisson. This combination represents a sound that is not an A or an U, but more like an O. So this is and here this is basically the same sound. It just has one more letter to represent a different. This represents water. This means water. So this is and this is too. Now my French is not very good, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing it perfectly. But it is just to give an idea of how these combinations represent different sounds. They are relatively consistent, and a French dictionary doesn't have a pronunciation guide on each word, but there are some words where you can see pronunciation guides. Another thing you can see about French is how they use some of these diacritic symbols. You can see this one here is different than this one. And they use a lot more. They are not presented here. This is just to have an idea of how French spelling influenced English. So moving now to Shakespearean English, we can see that by that time, English was retaken as a national language, but only a few words from Old English remained in use. There was a constant fluctuation regarding spellings and new pronunciations. Scribes at the time were writing the same words in different ways, sometimes in the same paragraph. Shakespeare himself wrote his name in many different ways, none of which was Shakespeare. We can see in this document that the name is written as Shakespears, and here we can see that the U was in use, not the V, and this was by 1609. Now, modern English has additional features that can be confusing for foreign language students. For example, 85% of modern English words come from Latin, but in many cases, their pronunciation was modified to follow English rules. Let's take this word, idea. In Latin, this would be idea. However, in English, this changed into a long I, and this changed into a long E, and it is now pronounced idea. And some people seem to pronounce it as idea. I don't see any R here, but apparently in some places it's pronounced idea. Let's take another word, for example, trimester, which in Latin will be pronounced trimester, right? And then even this word is used in a way that is not the same as it was used in Latin. Now, in addition to Latin, English grew and started to absorb words from other languages. Let's take this word here. This word is written colonel, but it's pronounced kernel. Now, the reason it is pronounced kernel is because in Spanish the word is coronel, and it's written with an R. However, this word is written like this because in Italian the word is colonnello with L. So these two words are combined now and are written following the Italian spelling, but is pronounced following the Spanish pronunciation. This word here, the A and the I are pronounced as they would be pronounced in Latin. Following the original rules, the word would be pronounced naive. However, since French and Old English tend to pronounce AI like e, then the diaresis was added here, which by the way is not longer used. But I'm showing it here as a illustration. So this word naive has a diaresis here because the A and the I are pronounced as they should be. And this other word, rodeo, comes from the Spanish rodeo. So there's another shift here. Let's talk now about the efforts to standardize English spelling. Most European languages went through a standardization effort, usually led by an appointed group such as the Académie Française or the Royal Spanish Academy, or la Real Academia Española. Now, in England, or in the English world, there were many standardization attempts, but unfortunately, most were unsuccessful. One of the prominent personalities involved was Benjamin Franklin, who said the following regarding English spelling: "Our words will gradually cease to express sounds. They will only stand for things, as the written words do in the Chinese language." There were more efforts led by personalities such as Andrew Carnegie and others that were also unsuccessful. Apparently, one of the problems was the inability to agree upon the pronunciations from different regions of the English world. Let's discuss now the process of learning English, starting first for learning English for native speakers. How it is for a native speaker when they're learning English spelling and pronunciation. By the time a native speaker learns the alphabet, he obviously already knows a lot of words. He may learn the ABCD song, but when he tries to apply the related sounds to the words, he finds out that they do not correspond. For example, A doesn't work in apple. The A sound is not in apple. However, it is in 8. Now on the word awesome, the A or the A are not present. There is a combination by the A and the W that sound like O. So this is the word awesome. Now this process can become very complex, and this is one of the examples of the ways that children are explained or introduced to this concept. This is a video by Sesame Street, which is almost a 6-minute video where they start giving the letter A, and then they say A is for arrow, and A is for apple, and A is for all the other sounds. But it's just a continuous exposition of these differences without any explanation of why A changes all of a sudden to A or O or to all the different sounds that can be assigned. So you can watch this video if you're interested to understand how complex this can be for a kid, which is still a native language speaker, but is being introduced to this relatively complex process. Let's take a look at another interesting aspect about learning English for native speakers. A native speaker typically starts the learning process when his or her parent reads stories from a book. This is extremely helpful in English because the parent is not showing how the spelling rules are applied. Instead, she is reading each word as a separate symbol so the child can learn the associated sounds. This may become frustrating for many who try to make sense out of it. Teachers usually do not tell the student these symbols are ambiguous and do not represent the corresponding sounds. A student may react in many ways to this, and in many cases may think there is something wrong with him or herself. Now, let's look at learning English as a second language. So let's look now at the experience of learning English for foreign language speakers, basically English spelling and pronunciation. The first challenge is that they do not know the words of the language. Many people start from zero. They're not their native language. For some who may know words from Latin, German, or French, the spelling and pronunciation may add to their confusion. Studying the alphabet, the ABC, does not provide the basic sounds used in the language, and instead they have to learn an additional layer of symbols, which usually changes with each dictionary. We'll see that later with more detail, but as you can see here, for example, for this word advocate, it's represented advocate, right? There's a symbol here, and then there's another symbol, upside down E, and then there's a diacritic symbol on top of this A, and you can see each word has a pronunciation guide. Now, this pronunciation guide in this dictionary may be completely different in a different dictionary. So there are several layers of definitions and signification that a student of English needs to learn in order to understand just the pronunciation. And then on top of that, you have to go ahead and define each or read each definition to understand what the word is. So it can be a very difficult problem or process. So to learn the words, they have to work constantly, usually with someone else, to learn each word as a separate symbol, which is a long and tedious process. Now let's look at the reading process itself and see how it works. First in Latin and then in English. This will help us understand the differences. So let's read in Latin first. And the first part of the reading process is to identify the sounds represented by the letters in a word. In this case, following the Western tradition, reading in Latin is always done in this direction. So let's go here. We have homo sum humani a me nihil alienum puto. Homo sum humani a me nihil alienum puto. I don't speak Latin and I am not 100% sure what it is. I already have the translation here, but I can tell here homo means human, sum, I am, humani is mankind, a me, to me, nothing alienates me or my thought, right? It is not strange to me. So, but the reading itself is very straightforward. Homo sum humani a me nihil alienum puto. Now let's take a look at a phrase and an English phrase. So we're gonna read this this phrase here. I will do it in the next video. You probably already read it, but we're basically talking about having dinner, which is this plate here, and in this place here, which in America, a diner is a place where you go to eat. So first word is I, which is pronounced I, and this is relatively easy to identify. There's not many words that can be confused with. Then we have will. Now will follows the rules of the Latin alphabet, so this is also easy to read. Will, right? Now be, it's a basic word and although it does not follow the alphabet rules, it's easy to recognize. So B is recognizable. It's just that instead of A, this is pronounced E, B. Now this word here, able, the A sounds like A, and the last E is mute. This is following French tradition. So here you can see that there's a little bit of a going back, right? Able, and then you have to know that the it's not read, but the sound between the B and the L, you have to actually pronounce. You have to actually use the vocal cords, in which case you're using the schwa. And this is not usually explained. They basically are told that this is pronounced able, right? And that's it. I'll continue with this. We now have the word to, and now the O here sounds like a soft U, right? So this is pronounced to. This word here, have, the A is pronounced A, following the traditional sound, but the E is not pronounced, it's mute. Okay? And then here you have the word dinner, which splits into two syllables, and then both syllables actually follow the Latin alphabet rules. So this is dinner. It's relatively easy to read, dinner. At also follows the Latin alphabet rules. Not much mystery there. Continuing with this, we got the word the. Now, this is an easy to identify word. It's very basic. However, I need to check if the next word starts with a vowel. In this case, it doesn't, so it sounds like the, where here we're using this to represent the schwa, which is, like I already said, the basic sound that's pronounced using the local vocal cords and not changing the position of the mouth. The mouth is relaxed. So we're going to be using this symbol to represent the schwa. Now, so here I have to go the, but before I finish, I kind of have to look at the next word to find out if it starts with a vowel or not. Because if it starts with a vowel, then this is pronounced D. So then I go back and I say, no, it doesn't. And so I go, duh. It's going to sound like duh. Local follows a bit the roots of the Latin alphabet, lo, but the A and the L, the A merges itself with the L to sound almost like an O. So it sounds more like a local. Depending on where you are in the English word, it may sound more like local. Right? So this sounds very a lot, but it's local. Then I have this word here that is similar to the word dinner that I had on the previous page, but it only has an N here. Now, so the missing N makes the I sound like I, while ner follows the alphabet rules. So you have diner. Now, this situation here actually follows a rule from Latin, which makes this vowel long and this one short. This particular rule is not explained, is usually not explained. Very few people know this rule, and basically gets ignored. So this is why diner sounds different than dinner, where dinner has a short I or a din, and then here it's a long I, so and this one is diner. So you see all that went on reading this, right? Eventually you will learn it and you'll be able to read it fast, but while you start learning it, it can become difficult. Now, to illustrate a part of the of this reading process or learning to read process, let's say I'm not sure about the pronunciation of a diner, and I want to check it in the dictionary. Right, so this is from dictionary.com, and dictionary.com says that this should be, the syllables are din, should be din and air, right? But the pronunciation here apparently is dahiner or dahiner. Not sure what this H actually is. I'm gonna assume it's just silent, and this would be diner, because I already know the pronunciation. But learning this can be confusing, right? This is another layer, like I was saying before. It's another layer that English student needs to learn. So here is diner. Of course, these days, you can just click on the symbol and listen to the computer pronounce the word. But if you're using a printed version of a dictionary, you just don't have that, and you just have to understand the symbols here. You imagine what it was learning 10, 15 years ago, where there was no internet access, and even today, internet access is not available everywhere. These represent an obstacle, right? This is not clear, and then it's not clear why they put the N here and not here, right? It could be both ways. But anyway, let's check another dictionary. Let's see what the Merriam-Webster says. Merriam-Webster says that, yes, the syllables are like the other dictionary, but here they're using different nomenclature. They're using different symbols to represent the sound. Right? Here they're using put a stroke on top of the I to represent that it is I, long I, and then here they use this upside down E, which basically represents the schwa. And so according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, this is pronounced diner. So it's not it's now, as you could see before, the dictionary.com said it was diner, right? Diner, and here this is a schwa. Using a schwa is not a good idea because any vowel can be confused with a schwa. Merriam-Webster usually represents the schwa, and this is a subject of the schwa. It's a very interesting one, and we will discuss that later, how it affects English. Now let's go to the Cambridge Dictionary, and we see here that we have a UK pronunciation and a US pronunciation, right? So if I come to the Cambridge Dictionary, there's yet another set of symbols here to represent the sound of this word. So here it says die, and then n, but I see an R, a little r, put here as a superscript, right? So of course I will have to go to a page where they may have lots of symbols explaining this, but I'm going to assume that this just means that the R is very slightly pronounced. So probably in the UK this is pronounced dino, right, with the R practically not pronounced. Where in the US there's yet another symbol here, which I don't know what it is, and looks like in the US this is pronounced Dina. If you go to the dictionary and click on these two, you're gonna see that there's a very small difference between these two, right? And I live in the United States, and I've always heard people talking about the diner, or it could be pronounced in very different ways, but it doesn't have to be pronounced. The R doesn't have to be mute, right? Diner. Anyway, this is basically to illustrate how the differences that you can find in English dictionaries, and how this can be an additional element of confusion for a foreign language student. Now let's take a look at another facet or another aspect of learning English for a foreign language student, and this will be looking for words, right? Let's say you're listening to a conversation and your level of English is you're a beginner, right? So you hear this: my uncle went to France last month, right? Like I said, you're a beginner and you never heard the word uncle, so you try looking in the dictionary. Now you assume that the sound is ah, so you look under ah, right? You say uncle. You are not familiar with all the different the nuances and all the different ways that English can use the sound. So you find this word in the dictionary, uncle, and for you it is close enough, right? But when you read the definition of this, it says the joint between the foot and the leg, right? Also the region of the joint, or the joint between the cannon bone and the pastern for a horse, right? So doesn't make sense, right? Your uncle went to France last month. This doesn't apply, so you still have to look. Of course, you'll eventually figure it out with your English teacher, with someone else who knows. But this is another obstacle that you have to face when learning English. Now, the situations that I have been discussing, and there are a lot more. I just provided some examples, can lead to confusion. The ambiguity of English spelling can create a lot of confusion, both for native English speakers and students of English as a second language. There's an article in the New York Times that It's from 2001 actually, right? That discusses the geography of dyslexia. And this is a new study suggesting that dyslexia, or at least the seriousness of any given case, may also be an accident, not just of neurology, but of geography. Simply put, where a dyslexic is raised and the language that is spoken there may play a role in the severity of disability. And now it says English, with its notoriously fickle spelling, may be the most daunting. Now, there is another statistic that shows that English has about twice the level of dyslexia than, for example, Italy. And as discussed, Italy follows closely the simpler rules of Latin. So it is very likely that people who have difficulty with dyslexia, it's due because of lack of understanding of English spelling, or how difficult it is to understand. Well, a few years ago, I was in the middle of this confusion, and I tried to understand the rules of English, look for some courses on it, but I could not find any course that would explain the actual rules. Most of the courses are about memorizing each word, and they are designed by English speakers who do not understand the viewpoint of a foreign language speaker. So I did my own research, and I ended up writing the book Enigmas of the English Alphabet. Enigmas of the English Alphabet explores the history of the alphabet and its adoption in the English language to help understand the peculiarities of its use in the spelling of its words. It includes an entire section describing each basic vocalic sound and the corresponding position of the mouth, using specific diacritic symbols to indicate them. It features special exercises which allow the reader to get familiar with those sounds and mouth positions, helping him improve his pronunciation in a relatively short time as compared to other systems. It also includes a list of most used words in English, indicating the pronunciation using these same diacritic symbols. I also developed a new method called Phonic Sense to simplify learning English pronunciation. Instead of having to learn each word as a separate symbol, Phonic Sense shows the basic vocalic sounds that are mainly in use in the American pronunciation. Each basic sound is indicated together with the associated mouth position to make it easier for the student to learn and recognize each sound. This approach helps alleviate the overwhelm some foreign language speakers may feel when trying to learn each word. Consider the following phrase, where Phonic Sense represents each sound using diacritic symbols. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. This method allows the student to learn only a few symbols to be able to identify and pronounce words following the alphabetic tradition. We have also partnered with Thinkific, a leading online course platform, to deliver our first course. This method will familiarize you with all basic vocalic sounds, including the schwa, used in approximately 75% of the words in English, but not usually taught and not indicated in English spelling. It provides exercises designed to learn each sound and learn to identify and differentiate them. Once the student learns the sounds using the diacritic symbols, it is easier for him to identify them in regular words without the need of the special symbols, providing added confidence in his ability to pronounce words. This is one of the screens from Phonic Sense, which describes the long A, and it describes a complex sound that usually goes from the schwa to the short a and back to the schwa. And it describes that it's not standard and changes between different regions of the English world. Another section represents additional vowel sounds that are different from the short and long vowels of English. Once the user is familiar with the symbols and the different mouth positions, Phonic Sense gives exercises where the user can go and compare the current spelling and the modified spelling to help understand the words, and switch back and forth until he understands how to do it. These are the different sections that are covered in Phonic Sense in the introductory course. It goes over the alphabet, the origins of the English alphabet. It then describes the vowels, explains why there are 5 vowels represented in the Latin alphabet, what are consonants, what are syllables, and it explains what the schwa is, which is one of the most important sounds in English, as already described. Then it continues the discussion about Old English, Middle English, Shakespearean English, and explains then what the great vowel shift was and what was the effects that it caused in the English language. Again, these are not widely known facts about English that can help a foreign language student understand the different pronunciation and the different rules there are. Then the basic pronunciation guide goes over the short vowels, defining all short vowels and mouth positions. Same thing for long vowels. Then it goes to the additional vowel sounds, like the closed a and the closed o, etc. And then vowels are pronounced as schwa. And it introduces different exercises designed to help the user get used to this pronunciation. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked this video and found this information to be useful. Please go to our website www.enigmasoфenglish.com/phonicsense. Links are also added below the video to see additional information regarding both Enigmas of the English Alphabet and Phonic Sense. Please don't forget to like and share. Bye-bye.